Hello, everyone. It's Shane Conto, your Wasteland reviewer. And guess what? You're back for Development Hell Podcast, and the movie club's back together again. Alex, Matt, Jim, and Vinnie, and myself here to talk about Amores Perros from Alejandro Gonzalez Inarritu, which I'm assuming most people who know of this director have probably seen Birdman and The Revenant. That movie where people think that Leo got raped by a bear, but that did not actually happen in the movie. But here we're talking about a much more human story with a lot of fun things happen in this movie, but we're going to talk about that. But how we always start things off when we do the movie club is that we're going to give everybody a chance to at least give some of their immediate thoughts on the film. And I definitely have a lot to say, but we're going to get things started with Alex. So Alex, what were some of your immediate thoughts?
My thoughts. Great filmmaker, great director, cinematography is great, and the editing is great. It's just so you could just see, how talented this guy is, knowing what you see from him 14, 15 years later with Birdman and Revenant. I think these are the only three movies I've seen from him. But visually, he's great. Even in like a small, gritty film like this, he's really good. The acting in the movie is wonderful. The actors are all, I don't know. I was really impressed with all the actors. I especially have a soft spot for, I think I'm saying his name, Gael Garcia Bernal. Because he was in, I don't know, some of you have seen Y Tu Mama Tambien. That movie steals my heart and then breaks it, and then I love it. I love that movie's awesome. And so I was so happy to see him when the movie drifts away. Oh, there, Y Tu Mama, there it is. Yeah, if you haven't seen, beautiful road trip movie.
Yes, Matt bought me this.
If you're a road trip person and you like road trip movies, you got to see it. I just, when I really enjoyed it. The middle section of the movie with the model, I think for me that went on a little too long. And so my issue with the movie, to avoid rambling, I'll say my issue with the movie is I think I would have liked to see him try to contain it to maybe one story and connect it with the third. The middle section felt much longer than it needed to be to have it be part of this world that he had built. It felt like a really interesting, short indie film in the middle of something else. And so so my issue with the film is really just in the writing and the length. I felt like it could have been cut, it could have been shortened, and I was really compelled by the initial story, and I would have liked to see him stretch that out, but that's just how I felt about it. Personally, I felt more tied to those characters in the beginning.
But Alex, didn't you hear? The longer the movie, the better the movie.
Who said that?
I won't go there.
Yeah,
Later fans,
that.
Probably.
Said that.
Matt, so what are some of your immediate thoughts on the film?
I really liked it. I like the fact that as the movie went on, I immediately pointed at the screen and I shouted Fargo, because of that conversation that all of us had about greed and then kind of being punished for wanting more. Each one of those things, each person wants more and then gets screwed over by it in a certain way. But the only downside though is that with Fargo, it's unreasonable greed, but these people, they want more in a way that's understandable. It's not I'm going to steal for it or I'm going to do, well, sort of, they kind of do that too. But look, I don't know. It wasn't as outrageous or as morally corrupt as the people in Fargo. So it was that much more heartbreaking. I don't know. But this movie's great. I'm definitely going to get the Criterion thingy, but used, because I'm not spending $27. What the hell?
Just
but yeah.
wait until the like how many times a year that Barnes and Noble has a sale or Criterion has their own sale, 50% off.
I didn't even think about that. You're right. You're right.
Just wait
Yeah,
for the
great
sale.
movie.
So all of you out there, go waste all of your money, your discretionary income on Criterion Collection movies. But how about you, Jim?
So I guess I should explain first why I picked this movie to throw into the hat, right?
This was your pick.
So this was my pick. Sorry, Vinnie was taking some of the heat earlier this month. Unjust.
I misremembered who nominated this movie. Sorry.
All entirely my fault. So I was studying abroad in Seville, Spain, and I was lucky to get a Mexican roommate. And at some point during the semester, he asked me if I'd ever seen this movie. And I hadn't. I'd never heard of the director. I knew nothing about Mexican film at all. I don't think I even saw Y Tu Mama Tambien, I think is it all 4 words? I hadn't even seen that until after I went to Spain. So that had been on my to watch list for a long, long time. And secondly, I didn't even realize how violent a movie I had nominated. So coincidentally, I nominated a very violent Korean film and a very violent Mexican film. So one thing that I'd love to touch on with you guys as Tarantino fans, I know Alex and I have talked about this at length on at least one occasion, but at what point does the violence become gratuitous or masochistic, and like does it work in this movie to kind of drive the themes home? My brain still, I haven't wrapped my head around it. I'm with Alex that I'm not a fan of the second act. I don't feel like it fits. It's a different tone completely. Not that I don't think thematically it fits, but stylistically, I disagree with a few choices that he made in this movie. But as somebody who's raised in the Christian faith, I'm seeing a lot of covetous behavior and people being punished for some kind of sin. But I think I need your guys' help with exactly what crimes are the avenging angel in this whole film here. But overall, yeah, I really liked it. B plus, A minus, somewhere in that range for me. Sure.
Yeah, Cain and I know. Just real quick, Cain and Abel is obviously you can't avoid that. You know, first in the first story between the two brothers, and then in the last story, he literally leaves the gun in between the two half brothers. You know, so Cain and Abel. I think he even calls him Cain. You know, okay, Cain. You know, like, so that's obvious.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
so quick things. We'll definitely talk. I think that would be a very interesting thing to talk about in terms of the violence, because I actually have a new movie that I could bring up to talk about in terms of this, because I just wrote an article about a new film that I had some issues with how far they went with some of the violence that they showed in it. So that's something we could definitely talk about once we share all of our immediate thoughts. But I had another thought and then it disappeared. So Vinnie, what did you think of, what are some of your immediate thoughts of the film?
Depressing, yes. Absorbing, absolutely. I won't go into too much detail right now because I want to save some for like the main part of the show. But what was I going to say? So before I saw I had never seen it before, and before I did see it, this and Beautiful were the only two movies from Alejandro Gonzalez Inarritu that I haven't seen. Beautiful, I heard, is very depressing, but we won't talk about that. But Amores Perros, with this being Inarritu's directorial debut, it was interesting to see like how he got started, especially when you think of it in the context of his whole death trilogy, which is Amores Perros and then 21 then 21 Grams and Babel, and because and then like throughout that trilogy he does the whole multi-story narrative, and it really was interesting. It really was interesting just to see like the first movie of his where he handled multiple stories, and just seeing where it all came from, and thinking about how it evolved throughout his Death trilogy. And I do agree with Alex and James. That middle section, I did think it was a little long. However, for the most part, I didn't really mind the length for details for which I'll go into as we get further into the discussion. But just overall, depressing as the movie was, I really am glad that I watched it.
Awesome. So I'm going to start my thoughts with a story, and this is alluded to already. So obviously, we spoil the hell out of the movies when we talk about them on here, because I'm going to be giving away a particular scene with my little story here. But I started watching this. It was a Wednesday morning because I had off. So I'm like, oh, I could get this movie out of the way. So I was sitting and watching it, and I'm sitting there like, this is a tough one to watch. And my girlfriend Jess was getting ready for work. I'm like, don't look at the screen, because it was like the dog fighting scenes and stuff like that. I'm just like, oh my. And I specifically watched this without her because I knew that there would be too much for her. And I didn't even know 100% what the film was about, but I saw Babel in grad school and 21 Grams in film club in undergrad. And then obviously I saw Birdman and The Revenant in theaters. One of my things about Alejandro Gonzalez Inarritu is he goes there. He really goes there with things, and I'm like, this is going to be a little too much for her. But anyway, so I'm sitting watching this film, and then it gets to the point where we're in the third act of the movie, and this man takes in this dog who had now been a dog fighting dog, and comes home to all of his other dogs dead. And that was the moment I took my phone out and texted our group, like, Vinnie, how could you do this to me? Because I misremembered who nominated this and didn't go back and double check. But I did love this film. This is a great film, but my God, if you're going to watch this, be prepared. And if you have an aversion to violence against animals,
oh yeah,
this is a lot. And as I was sitting there, and the actor, I have Emilio Echeverria was holding like all of his dead dogs. I'm just like,
that was hard.
I'm like, okay, that one sent me over. Because there's definitely moments leading up to this where it's like there's some really hard things to watch in this film that are very upsetting, doesn't pull away from the gore, and I'm just like, that's what got me. So Jim, that was the scene where I'm just like, I'm texting everybody like, oh my God, Warren, this movie. But I definitely agree about the second act. I feel like tonally, style-wise, and even deeper thematically, the first and third act really fit together really well. And then the third one, I still think it's a really interesting story. That damn dog, stupid rats. Just like at that point, like just rip off the whole entire floorboard. But like, I felt like it was a little bit lower than the other two stories. It didn't grab me as much. And so I definitely feel like I felt the length in the second act story more than the first and the third one.
So let me interject there, because what's so funny is that of course I'm this wasn't too far removed from the 90s, and it wasn't too far removed from Pulp Fiction, and I couldn't have, because of the black screen with the the chapters, for our generation we think of Pulp Fiction because Pulp Fiction It didn't start that. It wasn't the first movie to do that, but in our minds, in our consciousness, it was. And so there's that element. And I do find it interesting. That middle section with the model and the floor being ripped up, it reminds me of the Gold Watch. Every time I watch Pulp Fiction, I'm always like, all right, Gold Watch. It's like 20 minutes longer than I think it should have been. And I'm talking about, that's my pick for greatest movie of all time. And I'm saying that part of the movie could have been 20 minutes shorter. But however, if you watch the Gold Watch from beginning to end without watching the other parts of the movie, it's kind of like stands alone in this short little kind of like long short film that has this kind of, that was freaking crazy. And this kind of has that. I think if I had watched that section of the film without watching the first and the end, I think I would have liked it even more, because it would have been like, oh, this is this weird kind of IFC, 50-minute thing that some director did, because he had extra time on his hands or something. That's what it felt like to me. And that's why I said, for the context of this movie, it just felt like he went a little too far with it. But I also have to say, and I do want to touch on your question. I'm sure they'll have it, Jim, about the violence. Before I do, can't this guy get some cardboard and tape up the freaking holes? I mean, all you have to do is go out and get cardboard, duct tape, the one freaking place. No problem with the dog. By the way, and how dumb is that dog? I mean, so I had to stop. I was like, you gotta be, this guy is an idiot. I don't have money to fix the hole in my floor. Dude, even my own family, we'll leave a hole in the wall for God knows how long. We at least put something over it, for crying out loud.
Yeah, so maybe you shouldn't have a whole entire second budding family over here then, if you can't afford to cover a hole in your floor.
Yeah, yeah. He's got a nice apartment, dating a supermodel. I can't afford to fix a hole in my floor, buddy. You better, get a credit card. I know it's what this is.
Can I ask you guys a quick, how many people in this chat have seen Breaking Bad?
I've only seen a few episodes.
Start to finish.
Okay, so there's one episode of Breaking Bad that's different from every other episode in the entire series. Do you guys remember it?
I think I know which one you're talking about.
Is it The Fly?
The Fly, yeah. It kind of reminds me of The Fly. So I feel like there's an allegory in part 2, but I can't tease it out very well. I haven't figured it out yet. But the rats do remind me of, sorry, I'll just say this one thing. The rats remind me of Orwell, the rats in 1984. They kind of represent this subconscious fear of, I don't know that there's a concrete thing to be afraid of, but it's something subconscious is under the surface, and the rats are down there, and the dog is, I think, innocent, and I think all the dogs are innocent, and I think that's part of the point here, but it's because of their mistakes and infidelities that the dog is down there with the rats in the first place. So I don't know. Shane, did you want to say something about Breaking Bad?
Yeah.
Matt, go ahead. Yeah.
Go ahead, Matt.
I was gonna say that's funny that you said about the rats. I took it as Edgar Allan Poe and the Telltale Heart, where there's something that's under the floorboards that you can hear even at nighttime, and it's kind of driving you crazy. But it kind of also sort of represents the guilt that you have, or that you should have anyway. That's how I took it. That's interesting. I didn't even think about what you just said. That's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I didn't really hate the middle part. But Shane, you go. But I didn't really hate the middle part. You go.
You like the middle part?
I in general, I love this film, no matter how emotionally devastated I was at the end of watching this movie. But it did its job well. And I think this could be a nice segue into Jim's question, because there's a very fine line between something effectively hitting something really violent and gory and going there that hits you in the right way, that you feel that emotional impact versus you feeling a physical aversion to the film for doing it. And I felt like, so one film that I watched a couple of days ago is New Order. And this is a new film about like during a high-end, high society wedding, a whole entire class-based coup happens. And there's a rebellion and people uprising. And this movie so blatantly shows executions of people and violence against people and an unbelievably uncomfortable gang rape scene in the middle of it that I'm just like, I was literally sitting there watching the movie like, this movie's going there. And like, it was interesting because I was watching this movie and Jess had come downstairs to tell me something, and it was right at that moment. So it was like, what the hell is he watching? kind of thing. And I'm just like, what the hell am I watching? And after a while, sometimes you feel like, what's the point of this? And I feel like one of the films that is able to balance that perfectly is Schindler's List, because there's horrible things you see in Schindler's List.
Yeah.
But at least there's some decency to not show everything. So like if you haven't seen Schindler's List, spoiler, with the whole little girl and the red coat, do you see that little girl die?
No. I don't remember.
No, you don't see it. I thought that was a rhetorical question. That's why I wasn't answering. But no, you don't see her die.
No, you don't see her die. You see her dead later, and that's enough impact. You don't need to see a little girl get murdered. Like, there's like certain things that like Schindler's List shows some horrible things, especially with that one older physically disabled man. That one kills me. But like, it draws a line somewhere. This film, I felt like, how I judge it is, how do I feel while I'm watching it? Does it make me want to turn it off? Or does it make me want to feel with the characters? And at least with this film, even when I texted all of you, I was still feeling, I felt devastated for those dogs and this man. And it didn't make me feel like, God, I can't watch this movie anymore. Like, this is terrible. Why would you show this? Kind of thing. I was still in it. And I feel like if a movie goes too far, it takes you out of the movie. And at least for me, for the standpoint in this film, I never felt like it took me out of the film. It definitely hit me in the right spot because a lot of things in this movie really hit me emotionally and upset me. And I'm just like, wow, like, I'm not surprised Inarritu is still making films and has gone on to win Oscars for Best Director twice, right? He won for Birdman and The Revenant, right? I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
I think he lost for The Revenant.
No, he won. He won.
Oh, he won. It was just me that disagreed with that choice. That's what it was.
Definitely won for The Revenant because I was pissed off George Miller didn't win Best Director.
It should have been George Miller.
I liked The Revenant. I didn't think it was amazing. I thought it was good. I didn't think it was great.
I will never forget that Oscars night. Ever. Because I will never forget the feeling I had when George Miller didn't win Best Director, and I'll never forget the feeling I had when Spotlight won Best Picture. But that's just me and my extreme love for Mad Max Fury Road. But this man is an amazing director, an extremely talented director.
Oh, right. Oh, totally.
And like, if this is like how he came out of the gate, you know there's something special here.
Was this his first full feature film?
It was.
Whoa.
So like,
That's amazing.
and before I let you all chime in on the question that Jim brought up, quick shout out to Rodrigo Prieto, who is an amazing cinematographer because he did an amazing job with this. I remember being blown away by Silence that he did with Martin Scorsese.
Oh,
But
wow.
does anybody else have any thoughts on where is too far with like violence in a movie?
Well, the example you brought up with Schindler's List about how you don't see what exactly happens to the little girl. You just see that she did die. That is similar to what Inarritu does in Amores Perros because pretty much like any scene with the dog fighting, you'll see like maybe the first couple seconds of any of the fights, but pretty much like 95% of anything involving dog fighting, you just see the aftermath, and yeah, of course, the aftermath is really distressing to look at, but Inarritu, like he has enough of the restraint to know that seeing the aftermath is just enough to give us the impact of what took place. He knows he doesn't have to show us like everything that happens. He doesn't have to show us like the dogs actually killing each other. He could just show us the aftermath and just give us an idea of like what has happened before that and give us just like the emotional impact of that.
I'm not sure I agree. I mean, with respect, Vinnie, of course. I think, after watching Leo get not raped, but nearly murdered by a grizzly bear in The Revenant. Sorry, are we spoilers? Everybody's seen that film anyway, right?
Well, to be fair, if you haven't seen The Revenant, you at least know that he got mauled by a bear because like that
or
was
raped by a
everywhere.
bear. One of the two, right? I think if he'd had access to CGI that allowed him to show the dog fights, he would have done it. I get that feeling from this movie that he would, So this movie it's towing the line for me on too much, and I don't know that Inarritu would have gone too far had he, had the means to do so.
But what if it's okay that he like? Okay, so a good example for me anyway. When the movie first starts off, like there's moments where like there's the fighting's like 2 seconds of the fight and then it kind of cuts. But like what kind of made my stomach feel like queasy was not so much the fighting, but just like there's always like a person in the background mopping up just like the pools of blood. Or like you would see kind of like the drag line of the dog that had already just gotten, I guess, just lost. Like, but you didn't see that part. Like he showed you like the end, which is kind of like looking at the little girl with the red dress and like that barrel or whatever the hell. Like you just see like that part of it. But what if it's okay to show like really disturbing stuff? So I like this movie, which is the reason why I like the second part, because there was a big chunk of the second part that I didn't like, and then my mind kind of flipped when right towards the end, when I was thinking about it in the context of the movie, because I kept thinking, I really want to get back to the first part. Where is the connection? And then I thought, well, what if this is like showing like long form the consequence of the decisions and actions of other people, like your main characters in the beginning, like how they screwed up and the choices that they made and what they thought was completely correct and necessary, and how that completely like went off the rails, and it had like this cascading effect on like this couple who had their own crap to deal with. So not only are they dealing with stuff that was out of their control based on the car accident, but also like their choices, and then it kind of like. And then it was really good because then it kind of helped like the 1, 2, 3 of the greed and the want, or maybe the vanity thing. I guess that can be another sin too, right? Like the vanity of like her looking at herself, like I thought he was gonna say the view being like like hills or something. Like no, she's just looking at a giant version of herself.
False gods,
like
man. False gods.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, but and then. Well, maybe it's okay for me. It was okay to have all that violence because it made it made like the richer people's scenes, it made like, okay, wow, like you brought them down to like the level of like the people that we just spent so much time with, like in the bookend like character. And then also in the first part, like it's like the first chunk of it, it's so real, like it's almost like a documentary, like the way that they struggle, like that is so, and it's just like day in and day out, and it's almost kind of like there's it's like a different sort of violence, a different sort of like struggle and pain that's not bloody. It's just like, it's just the, I don't know, it's like the horribleness and the griminess and like the grittiness of just like, I don't know, it's like poverty, I guess, sort of, kind of, and the striving of wanting to go forward. You have Vinnie?
You know what? I'm sorry. I want to say, like, it's funny you say that because probably like a little bit before we started the discussion, I was thinking about how, you know, I just like I was thinking about how like each story focuses on like a different class of people, because you have the one story about the homeless guy, and then you have the one story of the two brothers. You know they're more of like middle class, and then you have the model who's upper class. So like, I mean, I haven't really, I really didn't start thinking about that until today. So I haven't really thought about like the deeper meaning behind each story focusing on a different social class. Like, do you guys have anything to say about that?
But then give me credit though.
I am giving you credit.
No, I'm just kidding.
I hadn't really thought about that, and it is interesting because like,
I'm sorry, keep going.
I'm sorry. Can I just say one more thing? Like, and
nope,
like,
you're not allowed to.
I'm cut off. No, but like that was the reason. That was like the reason why I said, like, even though the second section felt like it felt longer, you know, I think they spent like about as much time on that second section as they did the other two sections, and because of that equal allocation of time, you know, it really did help you feel like, you know, it really helped you feel like the different struggles that each class experiences. Like you get like an almost equal amount of time to each section of the story to really absorb like what each set of characters is going through.
May I interject a question? Does anyone know what city? I'm dumb American here. Is it Mexico City or is it a different? He's trying to get to war.
Yes.
Right?
It's Mexico City, and I did read just a random fact that like a lot of the film crews were robbed more than twice while they were filming this movie. So they were in the slums of Mexico City.
It's interesting.
Wow. I'm glad that's even better proof. When you are in a city, any city, the classes are of course going to intersect. It's more likely that they're going to intersect because everybody's living on top of one another, and neighborhood upon neighborhood. You only go, if you're in a nice neighborhood, you can only go so far before you get to a not as nice part of the neighborhood, you know, where there's not as much money or there's not as much resources, or however you want to look at it, you know, where there's more poverty. You get off the subway and you see people, you know, sleeping on a couch underneath the bridge. I mean, there you are right there. I mean, that person can become part of your day, you know, if you step on the needle that they just used, you know, now you have a whole other series of problems in a city. Those things are so much more likely to intersect. And so certainly social classes intersect. I can only imagine in Mexico City. And to go back to the middle character of the film, she's not even Mexican. She's Spanish, and she's a model. And look what happened, you know, like, so I think when you're in that sort of situation, the social classes are going to intersect, and it just, people are going to have an effect on each other's day, and in this case, on each other's lives. So yeah, it's crazy.
I think that's a great lead there. Like Chivito, the old man who looks a little bit like Karl Marx, maybe not coincidentally, he's like outside of society altogether as a homeless person. It's kind of making me re-examine my recent interactions with homeless people, and like, regardless of mental illness, you know, people just kind of, people either push them out or just ignore them, you know what I mean? And that he's taking advantage of his place being on the margins to whatever, assassinate people or get close to his daughter or what have you. But there's one point that they're giving us a little bit of exposition, or maybe even a backstory, we'll call it, about Chivo, right? And he was a revolutionary, right? Like, he left society to become a revolutionary to try to overturn the social system, right? And he failed. And I don't know, this is a different question, but I also want to know who you guys think would be like the main character of the story. Like, who is the protagonist of this story? Is it Chivo? I don't know.
I'm
You
sorry.
don't have to answer. You don't have to answer right now.
Who's Chivo again? Who plays Chivo?
He's the homeless guy.
Oh, okay. I forgot his name.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Echevarria, I think was the actor's name.
Yeah, Emilia Echevarria.
You know what? Yeah, about who the main character is. I mean, yeah, because like, it's I'm trying to think. You know what? It's interesting because I feel like Chivo, and like, it's, I don't know, depending on how you look at the movie, like, is he kind of like the moral center of the story? Because I don't know. You know what, Jim, you brought now you brought up a whole other thing. Like, I wish I had time to think about it now. I mean, I don't know. Like, I feel like the arc. You know what? Maybe it's because, like, maybe it's. I think, like, does anybody think that his arc has the most that happens within it? Like, does anybody else think that his arc has more moving parts in it? Like, maybe.
Like, when I'm thinking about the different stories in the film, because each of them has like a central character to them, and I feel like if you're really thinking deeply about this film and the themes of what it's trying to say, I think El Chivo is the one that really challenges them most directly. And is because, like, the first part of the film, obviously you have Octavio, who's played by Gael Garcia Bernal, and I feel like he's just a dumb kid who's just like, who's digging on his sister-in-law and is trying to figure out ways to get the hell out of here. And dude, like, what are you doing? And we're looking from the outside in on all these decisions, and we're sitting here from like I know I was sitting there watching, like, thinking about, this kid is an idiot. And like all these decisions that he's making, but it's like,
Vende contigo. Vende contigo.
he makes such, like, he makes dumb young person decisions and rash decisions and stuff like that. And like, thinking about it, like, at some point, all of us at some point have probably made dumb rash decisions out of immaturity and not understanding things. Alex has never done it. Never. And then with Valeria, it's just like, I think because of the situation she's in, she's so naive to like struggle. And now she's in this situation where it's like, her whole story is like, obviously she's dealing with her leg, but the main action of this film is, my dog slipped under the floorboard. And they talk about first world problems. But then you get to this last part, and this is a man who's weathered through so much and really is Like the other two are dealing with the immediate things going on in their life, and we see their struggle from the outside. And El Chivo's sitting there challenging people and challenging characters in this and challenging systems of like, this is a dude who's homeless, who has like his own gang of dogs and like just living off the grid, but like going around killing people. And even like how he takes control and forces those two brothers into a room and basically is like more or less the Joker being like, we're having tryouts, and throws them a instrument of one of their destructions and go at it. I think I think his character is the most interesting. His arc's the most interesting. And I think purposefully it's the last one because it's pulling the story and the themes together. So I don't know if I would call him the like main protagonist of the story, but I feel like he is the mechanism that really pulls the film together by the end.
But the car crash, though, I feel like wouldn't the car crash also be? How do you feel about the car crash being like, and the choices that led up to the car crash, and then that kind of like ripple affecting?
I guess if I can make a car crash the protagonist of a movie, then maybe. But like, obviously, that car crash is the catalyst to pulling this all together.
I think structurally, there's a protagonist in each one because of this style of filmmaking, where we're going to have chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. You do have a different protagonist.
Which is so interesting, Alex, that you brought this up earlier, because not going to lie, I didn't think of Pulp Fiction for a single second watching this movie. And now that you brought that up, and I'm like...
Structurally.
From like a structural standpoint, like, obviously, there's, like, it wasn't like Pulp Fiction did that for, like, the first time. I'm sure there's at some point some film that experimented with those films before 1994, but
Woody Allen used to do it.
Pulp Fiction started something in independent filmmaking, and there's so many people who kept trying to do those things. Like, I don't know if any of you have ever watched Lucky Number 11, but I'm just like,
didn't age so well. I used to love that movie.
I'm like, okay, somebody watch Pulp Fiction. But like, this is an independent film movement, and I can't speak to that Inarritu had influence from Tarantino on this at all, but it doesn't matter directly. There's this idea that, like, this was a thing, and then Inarritu made it his thing. Because if you watch 21 Grams, if you watch Babel, this is a thing that he does in his films, where he's challenging, like, there's different stories with different focuses, and some catalyst is there to pull them all together. And that's really hard to make work. Really hard.
Well, it's funny you say that, because, Amores Perros, this came out the same year as Traffic, which was another movie that dealt heavily with a multiple story narrative.
Which Soderbergh won Best Director for that, right?
Yeah, he was nominated twice for that.
Aaron Brockovich.
Yep.
But like, Soderbergh came out of the same independent film movement kind of thing, and it's interesting, and it does, like, takes a Soderbergh, it takes a Tarantino, it takes an Inarritu to make stuff like this work. Because trust me, so this seems like an odd comparison, but I've been talking about the Coen brothers so much on my Welcome to the Wasteland show, because I'm 2 films away from wrapping up my whole entire odyssey talking about all the films. Buster Scruggs doesn't work like this. Like
I still haven't seen it.
They don't come together in any way, shape, or form, and then it just feels like they didn't have enough for one long film, so they're just like, let's make a whole bunch of short films and just throw them together. Like, there has to be some real thought and care if you're just going to throw a bunch of stories together into something. And how this film, it feels organic in how this all plays out. And whether you feel like one of the stories is not as engaging or interesting as the others, it still all really works well. And by the end, you feel the ramifications of everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think the only thing I want to say about, I mean, what that independent film movement, the reason Pulp Fiction gets always thrown back into the conversation with these movies is that Pulp Fiction, had it not been as successful, had it not won Oscars, had it not kind of broken the glass ceiling at the time, then I don't think that these other directors would have felt like they had the permission to make the movies this way or to write these movies this way. Who knows if they would have played out in such a way where you have the 3 chapters, you can kind of mix things up, you can play with time, you could see scenes from different angles at different parts of the movie, depending on from different characters' perspectives. And then on the other side of it, the darkness of the subject matter, the violence of the subject matter, it gave directors permission to have those sorts of things. And you're right. A lot of people imitated it and did a very poor job. But this is an example where I don't think he's trying to imitate Tarantino. I think he's being himself within those permissions that the success of a Tarantino gave to other films. He's certainly, as far as like the feel of the movie, I don't feel Tarantino at all. It's simply just the layout of it that is somewhat reminiscent of a pulp, yeah.
Yeah, to build off of that, this does not feel like a Tarantino film, nor does the violence in this feel like a Tarantino film.
Yeah.
Because there's it's pulpy, and as Tarantino's filmography has gone on, that violence has become bigger and bolder and over the top. This feels so raw that it's hard to watch. And that, even going back to Jim's question at the beginning, it's so interesting to think about that idea of violence, because why am I able to watch John Wick just straight up destroy dozens of people's lives over the course of a John Wick movie and not bat an eye at it? But then you watch something like this and the violence in it, you're just like, is it going too far potentially? And it's all about the rawness. And it's so interesting because here's a question for all of you. How many of you have seen Sicario? Would you call that an action movie?
No.
No.
It's a movie with violence, but it's not an action movie. And I think that's why the violence in it's so visceral, is because it's not using the violence as entertainment. It's using it as this is happening and is trying to say something. And this film, I feel does the same thing. And I appreciate, Vinnie, what you brought up earlier about if I had to watch that dog kill all of El Chivo's dogs, that would have been a whole different other story. And trust me, I have witnessed a dog kill and eat a rabbit right in front of me. You do not forget the sounds that makes. And it's a completely different experience. But this film, and there's restraint here. And I think a great director knows restraint. And I'm sorry for all of you people out there who are huge fans of the Saw franchise. This is why I hate Saw. There's no restraint in those things. Yeah. And it's just, let's gross you out. And also why I can't watch a Rob Zombie movie, because there's no restraint. And this film showed some restraint. And actually, Jim, that was really interesting what you brought up, because I wonder, because that is very true in The Revenant. Honestly, one of my issues with The Revenant was at one point, I think it was when that horse went off the cliff. I'm just like, my God, what else can a poor man at this point, where I think it at some point got to the point where I'm just like, this is getting too much. Like, they've did horrible things to this man just one too many times at this point. But they did not pull away from that bear mauling Leo at all. And it's kind of scary watching like the rig that they had like swinging him back and forth. I'm just like, oh my. And it's interesting because like, what would have he done with a bigger budget? Because obviously with a small budget, you can't actually have dogs doing that stuff to each other. They would be shut down and charged with all kinds of stuff.
Quick shout out to the people, because I've seen pit bulls play, and not being growing up around a lot of dogs when I was in upstate New York. I was like, whoa, guys, they're fighting. And people will be like, no, Alex, they're just playing. They're fine. I'm like, they're playing rough, pit bulls play rough. So shout out to the people who worked on this film, who are able to do that and train the dogs to do all that stuff safely. And fingers crossed, no dogs got actually hurt.
He claims they didn't. Yeah.
And kudos to whoever put the peanut butter all over the other dogs and had them do it. Because not gonna lie, they do stuff like that all the time.
To get them to bite after each other.
It's the little things
Sure.
that you do in filmmaking. That's honestly some of my favorite things about filmmaking, is when you hear stupid little things like that is how they made something work. It's funny because I'll be watching a movie with Jess and she'll be pointing out, it's like, you can tell when somebody's like holding something off camera for a horse to look at or something like that, because like she rode horses and she knows them very well. And she's like, somebody's doing something to get that horse's attention.
It's a show. It is a show, but
that's movie magic.
I read that he used fine fishing wire. I don't know if this is true or if he was trying to get the animal rights people off his back. He was quoted as having used fishing line to have tied the dogs, like muzzled the dogs essentially, so they couldn't actually bite each other.
But you couldn't
muzzle their mouths.
Really?
Yeah, exactly. Like, he claimed that they muzzled the dogs, maybe not all of them, but some of the dogs' mouths with fishing line that was too fine to be seen on the camera. And some of those cuts are real quick, so it's definitely possible that we wouldn't notice,
Editing, yeah, it was very aggressively edited. Yeah, that's crazy. I hope that's true, by the way. That also sounds like a real
kudos to this is interesting. Inarritu is one of the editors on the film, so kudos to him and Luis Caraballer and Fernando Perez Unda for all of their editing expertise, because they really needed to work that in this movie. Because like even the shot where this made me so mad when that asshole shot the dog to get out of the fight that he was having, and even how they edited that to make that work for you to like not see it directly, to avoid like obviously harming animals during this. That worked very well. I'm like, oh, that got me so bad. There's certain times watching movies that I've wanted to jump through the screen, and like that was one of them. Number one is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I wanted to be the one strangling Ratchet at the end.
Oh yeah. Oh my God.
But I digress. Does anybody have any other thoughts, ideas, things that they wanted to bring up about the film? Vinnie.
One thing I thought that was interesting was how pretty much whatever happens to the dogs in each storyline reflects that of the characters, because in the story because the storyline with the two brothers, you have them like going at each other, and then you have the dog fighting going on, where obviously one reflects the other, and then you have the story, and then in the storyline with the model, she's stuck in her house with a broken leg, whereas and then you have her dog who literally gets trapped in the house, he's under the floorboards. Or he or she, I can't remember if it was a he or a she, but the dog is like scurrying under the floorboards. It's like in the floors of the house. It's literally trapped in the house, just as his owner is stuck inside the house, just injured. And then as far as the homeless guy, his name was Chivo, right?
Yes.
Chivo. Yeah, and then you have him. He's lost his family, and then the dog that was originally the Gabriel. What's the teenager? He's not a teenager, but he's like 20. He's like
Octavio.
Octavio. He has Octavio's dog, and then so you have Chivo who lost his family. Then you have the dog kind of reflecting Chivo, because Chivo lost his family, and then he comes back, and the dog has killed all the other dogs that he was living at. So that he was living with. So you have both Chivo and the dog losing their families. So what do you guys have anything else to talk about that?
I think that's great, Vinny. I didn't see any of that. So yeah, I think that's a great insight.
Well, and to add on to that, what I was thinking of, because as you were talking about your idea, I really started focusing on Chivo's thing, because what's Chivo do? Kill people. And what does Octavio's dog do? Kill other dogs.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's that's where they're at. And obviously and it's really unfortunate, because it's that dog wasn't born that way. That dog was turned into a killer, and then winds up killing all those dogs. And Chivo, people, I guess that's a big question you can think. It's are people born killers, or do they wind up that way? And I felt there's a lot parallel between that dog and Chivo's story. And it's very interesting, because remember at the very beginning of the film, when the dog's running away from the gang, that dog makes eye contact with Chivo at the beginning of the film. And there's that connection there. Yeah. And it's very interesting, because basically that dog becomes Chivo after all that. And if you want to look at it that way, in terms of they're killers. And at the end, Chivo tries to get away from that and leaves those two guys there. It's I'm not killing this guy for you. You do it yourself. Right. Kind of thing. And he shaves off his beard. That was not how I expected him to look. He shaved his beard off. I'm huh.
I know, he looks so different.
Yeah, because in his IMDb picture, it's the picture of him in this film. And it's with his big beard and everything. In the thumbnail, I'm just was not expecting that guy to look that way when you take that beard off. Such weird things. Alex, I think you could appreciate this. It's imagine you take Billy Gibbons' beard off. What the hell does that guy look like from ZZ Top?
Billy Gibbons? Who's Billy Gibbons?
From ZZ Top.
Oh, I don't listen to that. I've not. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's their whole look. Yeah.
What do these people look like without beards? But
yeah, I know, it's true. I haven't seen myself without a beard in a long time. It's been a while.
But that's... honestly, that was so. Back to Vinny's point, that's what I was thinking of when you brought up that point about the dogs, and that's very true about the second one too. With the dog's literally trapped in the house, and she's trapped in the house.
Yeah,
and they're both struggling there in what they can't do and what they can do. And basically their only out is that guy, the guy who's obviously cheating on his wife, having this mistress as a model and everything. And a small thing, that whole awkward situation where somebody his work's your wife's on the phone. And he gets on the phone and it's just it's not his wife, it's the model and everything. It's you thought I was her, and just my assistant said it was my wife. Just this is why you shouldn't get caught up in that crap, dude.
Hey, I got a question for you guys. Out of all the out of all the characters in the movie, which one would you be most likely to save? The main characters.
I had a similar question to this. I was gonna ask Matt specifically, but like, who would you take to Applebee's, and who would you definitely not take to Applebee's?
Yes.
So who
Matt,
would you
start with
save?
that.
I thought about
Who
that.
would
I
you
swear to
save
God.
to take to Applebee's?
Let's see who gets the Applebee's. Whose appetizers am I paying for? That's a joke because I would pay for nobody's ever, even if I like them. Let's see, who would I go with? I would go with the guy, the lovesick guy. He seems, the only thing he wants, he's doing all this stuff. It's not, I mean, he's getting money for it, but like he's doing all this stuff because he wants like a better life, number one, because he wants to move, and then he wants to protect somebody from like a very clearly abusive like person who also just happened to be like his brother, who also is a bank robber. Like he's just like a chill guy.
Brother is
yeah, he's not great. He's not. He can go to Burger King or something. Also, like Chivo, the guy at the end, he's like, I get what he's saying, but he's like, I don't. By the end of the movie, he in my mind hasn't. He's not there yet in terms of being a dad. In terms of being kind of like oh okay, like you're better now. You have been in my eyes redeemed because you didn't kill like those two brothers. Well, he's still not ready. Like he's still not ready to like face his own daughter. And even at the end, like to hear the reason why he left the family was because he said he wanted to make the world a better place by getting paid to kill people. Like that almost came off as like a lie or something. I don't know. Like, but he's not. He has like a lot to. He has a lot to kind of like. You can pile on a lot of like philosophical stuff on him and he can carry it really well, his character. But he's not somebody that like I think is cool. And the guy in the middle, he can't go to Applebee's. He could pay for me. He could Venmo me something. October 6th, my birthday, he can Venmo me something. But he can't like. I'm not gonna hang out with him. Like he's not chill. You know what I really did like? I really liked the parallel of the like picking up the phone and then nobody answering. Like how it was done to his ex-wife and then it was done to him or his wife. Like I really liked that. That was really cool, like tiny little callback thing. Like I don't know, I like stuff like that.
Speaking of Octavio being lovesick, that also just had me thinking, like another. I mean, I know it's not really like at the forefront of the story, but you know, another common thread between the three storylines is relationship tension because you have what was Octavio's brother's name? Ramiro. Because you have Ramiro and his girlfriend, and then you have Octavio trying to get Ramiro out of the way so he can be with this girl. And then in the storyline with the model, you have the guy who's cheating on his wife with the model, and then in the storyline with Chivo, he he's like, after losing his family, he's jealous now that his wife has taken on has continued on with someone else, and just the whole thing with each storyline focusing on a different class of people. You know, in a way, it kind of shows that it's a way of showing that no matter what class of people you're in, like every class like experiences like the same problems every now and then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, another thing to note off of everything that's being discussed is notice that the father figure is also removed from a lot of these situations. You know, from Octavio and Ramiro, there is no father in the home.
Yep.
The guy who's leaving his family for this supermodel, he's, disconnected from his family. He can't even want to talk to his ex-wife and can't seem to pull himself to say anything to her. And then of course Chivo is disconnected from his daughter. and then along with that, you have people, in particularly men, regardless of, like, yeah, I like Octavio, and I even sort of kind of like some of the philosophical stuff coming from Chivo, but they have these very aggressive, violent means about which they have to go about doing their things. And there is no innocent man in this movie. I'm not so sure. Ironically, the one we probably like least in the middle of the movie, because he's kind of like he comes off like a yuppie kind of whiner, but at least he tries to take care of this woman he's in love with. We like him the least, but because he's not as cool. But no, there's that's definitely something you kind of have to take a look at first. But once again, I want to know who of all the main characters in this movie. I'll tie the two questions together. Who would you save, and who needs most saving?
Okay, so I would save Chivo. Sorry, Shane.
You would save Chivo? Jim, are you sure about that?
I would. I'm sure, yeah, because I think so. They allude to the fact that he left his family to serve society. He became a revolutionary. He was a Zapatista, and that's how he wound up in jail. So, like, that to me takes balls, even though he's an asshole. I mean, he is totally an asshole. But who needs saving most? I think it's Octavio is the teenager, right? Octavio has no guidance whatsoever. He's like a loose cannon. So I would save Chivo, but Octavio needs it more. Shane.
Also, are we counting like the model's the character of the middle one, right? Not the
model is, yeah. And you could throw in the sister-in-law. You could throw in.
I feel like the person who definitely needs the most saving and guidance is 100% Octavio, because like, dude needs to find his way. He's like, and it's interesting that he doesn't have that father figure. He doesn't have he's just off making terrible decisions on his own, and nobody like what's his friend's name who winds up dying in the car crash? Because like, come on, man, you're just enabling him. Jorge just keeps going along with everything, and just like Jorge's just as complicit in all of this. Probably the one that I would say, like, I feel bad for the model, because like, here's the thing. Yes, she's not, like, obviously from like a privilege standpoint, she's the most privileged character in this movie. But the thing is, like, her situation that she winds up in physically and in pain and like losing her leg and everything was not her fault. Like, it's Octavio's fault.
It's true.
I feel like I would probably think she's the one that deserves the most saving, because she's in a bad situation, not by her own making, specifically with like her ailment that happens. Having this affair with a married man and everything, and like helping him live this extra life, I think that's a bigger moral, bigger moral thing. Is like, is the person in a relationship with somebody who's having an affair morally wrong in that situation, kind of thing? That's a whole other story. But thinking about strictly the effects of what happened with her in that car accident, she didn't deserve that. And she has to deal with it. And it's really a shame, because like, it was hard watching her in all that pain. And I don't know. I guess those are my thoughts.
Octavio will make a good dad. You guys don't think Octavio will make a good dad? He sacrifices. He's like, he has drive. He's creative. He wants to take care. He doesn't just want her. He's not like, okay, but I'll take you away to paradise. But then like, like put those other kids up for adoption. We're not taking them. Like he wants the whole picture. Like he wants everything and to live. Like I don't know. He's pretty dope to me.
He's got balls.
I mean, but he just needs a Tinder account because obviously that's not the right for whatever. But that's all he needs. He just needs Tinder or eHarmony if you want to pay for it. But like
Match.com, Bumble. Get all the bots on there. He has good intentions. Good intentions don't make you a good father. I think he has a lot of things he needs to figure out first.
Yeah, like you're right. He has good intentions, but he makes rash decisions. But he needs time to actually figure out what it is he wants to do and how he's gonna go through with that. Like, because he just goes up to his sister-in-law and is like, I'm gonna take you away from here. We're gonna go here. We're gonna take the baby. We're gonna live new lives. And then you're thinking to yourself, okay, that's admirable that you want to get her out of the situation, but how are you going to do that? Like, how are you going to make it safe for everyone involved?
Dogfighting is safe. What are you talking about?
I have so many pop culture references to make now because like the thing that popped in my head when you said it's like you don't have like you know what you're going to start with and you have an end point and nothing in between just made me think of the Underpants Gnomes from South Park where it's like step 1 steal underpants, step 2 ? Step 3 like take over the world. It's like there's nothing in between here. And it's interesting with I know exactly what kind of dad he would be. So did all of you watch Mrs. Doubtfire growing up? Like
Yes.
I did. So when you're a kid and you're watching this movie, it's like Robin Williams is the hero of this movie. He should have his kids. And then I saw a meme recently that's just like, as an adult, of course Sally Fields is the better parent in this situation. Look at the crazy stuff that Robin Williams did. Like brought a donkey in the house and like, of course he's not a great father at the beginning of that movie. So like, I feel like Octavio would wind up being that kind of dad. Where it's just like, I'm just here to please my kids and make really rash and dumb decisions.
You're saying he'll become Mrs. Doubtfire?
You're saying that he would go on to win an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor?
You're saying that he's going to become my dad?
So, I could totally see in a world Octavio being that dad that is the cool, fun dad that winds up getting his kids taken away and then him having to come up with some convoluted plot to get close to his kids. Whether that would be the plot of Mrs. Doubtfire or not, that is an option. I'm not saying that's exactly what's going to happen here.
I mean, given the depressing nature of this movie, you really can't imagine a character eventually becoming what you could describe as the cool, fun dad.
Not a way. I don't know.
I did not expect it to go this direction. This is crazy.
All I'm saying is that he's a way better dad than the guy in the middle because I actually had a physical reaction to when the model said, yeah, but like I rescued you from like your terrible wife and your stupid kids. For the fact that he didn't defend his children, I don't care how he feels about his ex-wife, but like he didn't defend his children. Like I actually had like that was like that moment was when I thought like, okay, so I'm just not gonna like you.
So like if I had to pick anybody in this movie, if like we're on a raft and there's one too many people on this raft, I'm pushing that guy off. Like that guy's gone. Like he is the most unlikable person to
He is.
Now Octavio's brother.
Right.
Sophie. Well,
Oh no, I would.
Brothers, I'd push him off, man. He is a son of a bitch, man.
Yes, Octavio's brother's going off first.
No,
like if you get somebody else, then the adulterer guy.
You know the thing.
If anyone I'm giving Ramiro the axe because I did not like him in this scene when he was getting beat up. I was like, all right, you know what? Like, I don't want to see anyone get beat up, but if it's gonna be someone, I'm glad it's you.
The thing that's interesting with the brother dynamic, and strangely, it kind of reminded me of Place Beyond the Pines. Remember when Chivo looks at he must have taken Octavio's wallet after the car crash, and he's looking at the pictures, and one of the pictures is Octavio and Ramiro together with their arms around each other, taking a picture. And that's the first time, like the only time in the movie you see them like as brothers.
Yeah.
And it only reminded me of Place Beyond the Pines because you see a picture of one of the characters, I won't spoil it, at the end of the movie, and you hadn't seen that character, for like 45 minutes at that point. And you're like, oh wow, like feels like such a long time ago where we saw that character, or in this case, these characters. And empathy is a wonderful thing. I think that's one thing about Octavio is he does have empathy. He does care about what's going on around him. And I do think that empathy has drawn him closer to his sister-in-law. Maybe it's one of the reasons why he's grown more attractive to her, because he wants to protect her. He wants to care about her, and he's coming into his own and being a man. And so that's why he wants to do it, and it's so mixed up and so crazy that he'd be willing to steal her from his own brother. Back to the Tinder thing, like, dude, Match.com, I think they had it in the year 2000 or something.
He needs to branch out.
And in the years,
yeah, I don't know.
A little bit.
We had to save the mom. Like, screw everybody. We need to save Octavio's mom because, like, she's getting like, and also the sister-in-law's mom, who is an alcoholic. She needs. I feel like all these people need therapy. Like, everybody needs counseling. Everybody needs a good night's sleep. Everybody needs like
a good night's sleep.
Hey Matt, if there was a job to be a counselor for movie characters, and like you'd be transported into movies and be the counselors for different movie characters, would you take that job?
Damn, yes. And this would be the only time I would say no to Pulp Fiction, because the moment you say like, wait, what? Say what again? Like, whoa, put the gun down, please.
So,
yeah,
we prescribe that Matt needs to counsel all the characters in this movie because they all need it.
Specifically, the mom character, though, I felt so bad for her. Her son, one son, is he's a domestic abuser who like sticks up bangs. His other son, her other son, is this person who, I mean, okay, I'm gonna go back on what I said a little bit earlier. I think he's an awesome character, but he's selfish as hell. Like, even like you can save someone without like having sex with them. You find the resources, you know what I mean? You put them in a shelter. You don't put your tongue in their mouth. Like, that doesn't help you. I don't know, but
I thought it was a little, like, to me, sitting and watching, I'm like, these are a little complicated feelings here, and I don't know if it's like really in the right place. And it's really weird because he's really persistent about it. And just
almost like no means no. It's like, oh wait, no, but that's the no, dude. You take that no. The first no. I don't know. I guess there is no Me Too yet. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know if I would. I don't know if I want to hang out with any of these people now that I think about it, but I think he needs a saving most of all. Him and his mom.
So
then to Applebee's.
So Matt takes the mom to Applebee's, and everybody else is waiting outside looking through the window because it's like, no, you don't earn Applebee's.
And the guy in the middle, he like paid for it.
Yes, we billed his account. And that's where we're at. Does anybody have any other thoughts, final things that they want to bring up about Amores Perros?
One more thing. What does it translate to? Oh, Jim, what were you going to say?
That's a great question.
You got Jim. You got Appalachian. You got Appalachian.
I
Stutter,
was
my man.
watching the movie. When I started the movie. How about? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Good. When I started watching the movie, I was convinced that Amores Perros meant loves dogs, but the subtitle said loves a bitch. And I was like, oh, that's new information to me. My question, I mean, that one's still open to you guys. I want to know what you guys think about, like, is there one word or a clause that you could say, this is what the dogs mean in this movie? Like, this is the idea that they represent. Or maybe that's too tall of an order. I don't know. But my subtitles claim that the title of the movie means love is a bitch.
That's a really interesting translation of that, because that has so many thoughts and ideas about what this movie really is. Because, like, where'd love get anybody in this movie?
It didn't get Octavio anywhere because his storyline is really like the only one that doesn't have any sense of closure, because at the end of his storyline, it's just him at the bus station waiting for his sister-in-law to show up. She doesn't show up, and then he kind of just walks away, and you don't know what's gonna happen to him.
Because it's like, he loved his sister-in-law, and look what path that took him down. And then, like, in the middle, this not great love affair going on here sure didn't leave either of them in a great place. And obviously the model can't model anymore. And Chivo loved his dogs.
But now he only has the one.
Has the one that killed the rest of them. Loved his daughter. He's in a place where he's just like, where's life taking him at that point? That's very interesting. And I feel like the dog, like, at least like my immediate answer to that is, I think the dogs represent different things for the different storylines for each of the characters. But, like, obviously they're a big motif throughout this film. And even I have to say, the Criterion Collection cover for this movie is really cool. It's a really stylized drawing of a dog face on the front of it. So obviously the dogs really mean a lot in this movie. It's the name of the movie, and they're everywhere. So
yeah.
Maybe dogs reflect, maybe kind of like what you were saying earlier, Shane. Maybe it's like dogs reflect, like, because how much attention and effort and like time and love you pour into something, like maybe that thing might be like a reflection of you. So, like, which would make sense for, if that's what, at least that'll be my takeaway anyway. Like the dog is stuck in the floorboards, like that thing, even the way that it looks, it's such an interesting choice for a dog, because it almost looks like if you poke it, it will break, compared to any of the other dogs in the entire film that look weathered and strong and like dangerous. So I don't know, maybe all the dogs just like reflections of like the people that take care of them, and then maybe also like their choices too. And then with regards to the guy at the end, it's kind of like his downfall, like his, like the consequence, like him caring about dogs maybe more than his daughter might be like life kind of saying, okay, so then you only have dogs, or you only have one dog, and your daughter will never care about you, and whatever, and you're riding off, and you're walking off into whatever wasteland. I don't know, where the hell was he? Where was he going?
No, I don't know. I was wondering the same thing. I have no idea where they were going. They were just making a dramatic exit. Stage left.
It looked like Death Valley.
going to America.
Going to America.
I'd watch that sequel. I think I'd watch that sequel.
Chivo Goes to America.
Love bites. Like, whoa, okay. Like,
And there we
Oh.
go. Nobody else has anything else to say. We're wrapping this up with a pitch for a sequel. Love Bites. Chivo Comes to America. So there you go.
¿Cómo se dice bites? Amores comemos. Amores comen. That's love eats.
So all of us are obviously getting executive producer credits or associate producer credits on this and story credits. So look at us, call us up. We want our money. But this was a very interesting story, I think, and discussion of this film. Went some interesting places, a lot of them because of me bringing up strange tangents like Mrs. Doubtfire. But that's what you get here with the Movie Club here on the Development Hell podcast. At least we'll keep it interesting. But thank Alex, Matt, Jim, Vinnie, and all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting the Development Hell podcast.
oh wait, I want a cool one.